Yes, I mean, I think there is that historical perspective. And it's important now, I think, because so much of what we see in here is very much in the now. And maybe fashions, they have their place, but long-term commitment has a lot going for it.
Everyone assumed Camilla had finally secured her place. The crown was hers. The title was hers. The world was watching. And then, in a single moment nobody saw coming, she lost the room. Completely. Millions of people watched it happen live and could not look away.
I mean, because I believe that there is a genuine benefit from this particular arrangement, the constitutional monarchy, and I think it has good long-term benefits.
Body language experts broke the internet. Palace insiders went silent. Because the woman who stepped into that space was never supposed to be there. Princess Anne just changed everything. And what she did next has the royal family absolutely terrified. In 2024, Princess Anne carried out 454 royal engagements. That is 395 in the United Kingdom and a further 79 abroad. Queen Camilla in that same year carried out 182. Now those two figures sit next to each other in the official record, and the gap between them is not subtle. It is not the kind of thing that can be explained away by scheduling or circumstance. It is nearly 3 times the workload, completed by a woman who is 74 years old and who, at one point during that year, was hospitalized after being kicked in the head by a horse. She still finished first. She has finished first 4 years running. To put that into perspective, King Charles himself, who was managing a cancer diagnosis and treatment throughout 2024, came in second place with 372 engagements. Princess Anne was above him. She was also on multiple occasions throughout the year stepping in on his behalf, filling gaps in the schedule that his health had created. The institution was leaning on her, and she was holding. Queen Camilla's 182 engagements placed her behind not only Anne and Charles, but also behind Prince Edward and his wife Sophie. For a woman who holds the title of queen and who sat through a coronation ceremony watched by millions, that number carries a certain weight. It is not an accusation, it is simply what the record shows, and the public has been paying attention. YouGov, one of the most widely cited polling organizations in the United Kingdom, has been tracking royal favorability for years. Their data tells a consistent story. As of early 2026, 70% of the British public hold a positive view of Princess Anne. That figure has barely moved in months. It sits there, steady and unshifting, regardless of what is happening in the news cycle around it. Queen Camilla's numbers tell a different story. By January 2026, her positive rating had fallen to 42%. That is the lowest figure YouGov had recorded for her since March 2021. At the same time, the proportion of the public holding a negative view of her had risen to 45%. That means right now, more people in Britain view Queen Camilla unfavorably than favorably. For a sitting queen, that is a significant position to be in. The gap between those two women, measured purely in public trust, is not a small one. Anne sits at 70%. Camilla sits at 42%. That is not a rounding error. That is not a bad week. That is a structural difference in how the British public relates to two of the most senior women in the royal family, and it has been consistent enough for long enough that it deserves to be taken seriously. Now, before we go any further, I want to ask you something directly. When you think about who actually holds the real credibility inside this family right now, not the title, not the position on the balcony, but the genuine gut-level trust, whose name comes to mind? Drop it in the comments. I read every single reply, because here is what makes this conversation worth having. The monarchy does not run on ceremony alone. It runs on something far harder to manufacture, and that is public belief. People have to look at the institution and feel that it represents something real. The moment they stop feeling that, the whole structure becomes harder to sustain. And right now, the data is pointing in a very clear direction. Let's talk about what that data actually reflects, because polling numbers do not appear from nowhere. They are the accumulated result of what people have watched over time. Princess Anne's reputation did not arrive fully formed. It was built across 5 decades of work that most people never saw. Hundreds of engagements a year, year after year. Patronages of charities and organizations that do not generate headlines. Agricultural conferences, hospital visits, writing for the disabled, the Save the Children Fund, of which she has been president since 1970. She has represented the country in roles that carry no glamour and attract no cameras. And she has done it consistently enough that the public simply came to trust her. Not because she asked them to, because the record was there to see. There is a version of royal life that is built around visibility and image management. And then there is the version Anne has always operated in, which is built around simply showing up and doing the task. Those two approaches can coexist within the same institution, but over time they produce very different results in terms of where people place their confidence. Camilla's path has been entirely different. That is not a criticism. It is just a fact. She entered public life under circumstances that made public trust extremely difficult to build. For years, her name was connected in the public mind to the breakdown of King Charles's marriage to Diana, Princess of Wales. That association did not fade quickly. The British press kept it alive, and the British public carried it with them. When Charles and Camilla eventually married in 2005, polls showed that fewer than half of people in Britain wanted her to become queen. What followed was a genuine effort to change that. Camilla took on royal duties steadily. She showed up. She avoided controversy. Over time, her approval ratings improved. By the time she was crowned queen consort at Charles's coronation in May 2023, there was a reasonable argument that she had earned a degree of public acceptance that would have seemed impossible 20 years earlier. But acceptance, as several royal commentators have pointed out over the years, is not the same thing as affection. And affection is not the same thing as trust. Camilla's journey involved asking the public to forgive something, or at least to move past it. A large portion of the public did. A significant portion did not. As recently as 2025, polling showed that the British public was still divided on something as fundamental as what to call her. Around 30% preferred the title Queen Consort. About 23% were comfortable with Queen Camilla. A further 15% felt she should still be known as the Duchess of Cornwall. The woman has been crowned, and the country has not yet reached a consensus on her name. That is the environment in which the comparison with Anne becomes so striking. Because Anne has never needed the public to work through anything on her behalf. She never gave them a reason to. Her record is simply the record, and it speaks clearly enough that no reframing is required. In November 2024, the two women shared a stage in a way that the cameras found immediately significant. Princess Anne, in her role as Chancellor of the University of London, presided over a ceremony at which she presented Queen Camilla with an honorary doctorate in literature. Think about that arrangement for a moment. The king's sister standing at the podium, conferring an honor upon the king's wife. The protocol was followed correctly. Anne, fully aware of the order of precedence, stepped back at the appropriate moment to allow Camilla to enter first. But what the room felt, and what the footage showed, was something that protocol does not fully capture. It was the Princess Royal in her element, comfortable in her authority, performing a role she had held for years while the Queen received recognition for a contribution to public life that she is still, in the minds of many people, in the process of establishing. The optics were not engineered. They were simply the result of two women being exactly who they are, in the same room at the same time. And what they produced was an image that commentators spent the following days discussing, because it seemed to illustrate something that polling data confirms but cannot quite convey in human terms. There is a difference between authority that comes from a title and authority that comes from a record. One is assigned on a specific date. The other accumulates quietly over years, and by the time anyone notices it, it is already permanent. And inside the British royal family right now, the direction that movement is taking is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Let's start with a piece of jewelry. Not because jewelry is trivial inside this family, but precisely because it is not. In royal life, objects carry meaning that goes well beyond their material value. A brooch worn at the right occasion signals continuity. A tiara borrowed from the collection signals belonging. These are not accessories, they are statements, and everyone in that world understands them as such. Reports surfaced that Queen Camilla had allegedly blocked a bride from accessing a tiara from the royal collection ahead of her wedding. The bride in question was marrying Peter Phillips. Peter Phillips is the son of Princess Anne. He is also someone with whom Prince William shares a close personal bond. According to those reports, William was not pleased. The future king reportedly felt that Camilla had no right to make that kind of decision about who could or could not access the royal jewelry collection. Now, step back and look at what that single reported incident contains. You have the sitting queen on one side, exercising authority over a family asset. You have the future king on the other side, disputing that authority. And in the middle, connecting William to the groom and the groom to the family in question, is Princess Anne. Her son-in-law's wedding, her family, her orbit. William did not have to take a position. He chose to. And the position he chose placed him, at least in that moment, firmly on the side of Anne's family and against Camilla's decision. Inside a building where every small choice is a message, that is not a small message. This matters because William is not simply the Prince of Wales. He is the next reign. Everything he does right now, every relationship he maintains, every dispute he enters or avoids, is laying the groundwork for the monarchy he will eventually lead. Royal commentators have long noted that the figures a future king surrounds himself with, the ones he trusts, the ones he leans on, tell you more about the direction of an institution than any formal announcement ever could. And the figure who keeps appearing at the edges of these moments without drama, without maneuvering, is Anne. She is not competing for William's favor. She has never competed for anything, which is perhaps why it keeps arriving anyway. There is another fault line worth examining, and this one runs closer to the center of the next reign. Reports from early 2026 described significant tension between Queen Camilla and Catherine, the Princess of Wales. Insiders quoted in the British press use the phrase open warfare. That is a strong choice of words, and it is worth treating it carefully because palace dynamics are frequently overstated by people with an interest in overstating them. But the core of what was being reported was specific enough to take seriously. The tension was said to have intensified following a state visit during which Camilla appeared to dismiss Catherine during a conversation with a visiting dignitary. That moment, witnessed by others in the room, reportedly became a flashpoint. And the fallout, according to those same sources, had been compounding for some time before that. Think about what that means structurally. Queen Camilla and the future Queen of England are, according to multiple reports, in a state of genuine friction. That is not a gossip column detail. That is a description of the two women who, between them, are meant to represent the public face of the British monarchy across the current and the next reign. If the relationship between them is strained, the institution carries that strain. It shows up in photographs, in seating arrangements, in who stands where and who looks at whom. And where is Anne in all of this? Exactly where she has always been. Away from it, unentangled. Getting on with the work. That positioning is worth paying attention to, because in an institution that is simultaneously managing a king's cancer recovery, a future king's preparation for the crown, a Princess of Wales returning from her own cancer treatment, and a queen whose public approval is at its lowest recorded point, stability is not a small thing. Stability is the thing. And the person the data consistently identifies as the most stable senior royal, the one who generates no crises and requires no managing, is the Princess Royal. YouGov's most recent rankings, published in May 2026, place the royals in order of public favorability as follows. The Princess of Wales at the top, Prince William II, Princess Anne III, then King Charles in fourth. Queen Camilla did not appear until below Zara Tindall, who holds no formal royal title and carries out no official duties on behalf of the crown. The sitting queen, ranked below a family member who is not a working royal. That is where the polling currently stands. There are people who will say that polling is not the point, that the monarchy is a constitutional institution, not a popularity contest, and that Camilla's position is protected by law, by ceremony, and by the simple fact of who she is married to. All of that is true. Titles are not withdrawn because of a YouGov survey. The crown does not shift based on a percentage point. But here's what polling does reflect. It reflects the reservoir of goodwill that an institution can draw on when things go wrong. It reflects the faces the public trust when trust is the only thing holding a difficult moment together. And when that reservoir is measured right now, in the middle of a reign defined by health challenges and transition and quiet internal tension, the name that comes up consistently is not the Queen's. It is the princessroyal.ipsos polling from 2026, placed Camilla's favorability at 30%, her lowest figure in years. Anne, even accounting for some movement in the numbers, remains substantially ahead. The difference between those two figures is not simply a matter of personality or likability. It is the accumulated result of 5 decades of a certain kind of behavior, contrasted with 3 decades of a very different kind of journey. Both women have shown up. Both have done the work in their own way. But the public, given a choice about where to place its confidence, keeps arriving at the same answer. And underneath all of the data, underneath the rankings and the percentages and the reported disputes, there are human beings carrying weights that the cameras only partially capture. For Camilla, the weight is old and specific. She has spent the better part of 30 years working against a current that never fully turned. The public came to accept her. A portion came to respect her. But the feeling that she still has something to prove, that her position is provisional in a way that no other senior royals is, has never entirely disappeared. To be crowned and to still find that the room tilts towards someone else is a particular kind of experience that no title fully resolves. For Anne, the weight is different. She never sought this. She built her reputation precisely by staying out of stories like this one. 50 years of quiet, consistent, largely unnoticed work, and now, in her mid-70s, she finds herself at the center of a conversation about power and credibility and the future of the institution she has served without complaint for most of her life. That is not something she engineered. It is simply what the record produced, and the record in the end is what this comes down to. Not the titles, not the ceremonies, not the carefully managed photographs or the official statements. The record is what remains when all of that is stripped away, and it is the thing the public keeps returning to when it decides who it trusts. Princess Anne has 474 engagements in a single year, carried out while managing a head injury to show for hers. A favorability rating of 70% that has not moved in months. A position inside the family that requires no defending because it was never the kind of position that needed to be claimed. It simply grew year by year, engagement by engagement, until it became the thing the institution rests on without quite saying so out loud. Camilla has the crown. She has the title. She has the ceremony. But the gap between what those things represent and what the public actually feels remains, and by the most recent available data, it is not closing. That is not the end of her story. Institutions are complicated and people are complicated, and the reign is not over. But it is where things stand right now, in the middle of a transition that the monarchy is navigating carefully and that the public is watching more closely than the palace might prefer. So tell me what you think. When the crown eventually changes hands and William takes the position that has been his to inherit since birth, which of these dynamics do you think survives? Does Anne's quiet authority become the foundation the next reign builds on? Or does everything we have been watching get quietly reset? Leave your answer below. The best comments are always the ones that make someone else see the whole thing differently. And if this kind of analysis, looking past the headlines and into what is actually happening, is what brought you here, then subscribe and turn on notifications. There is another story coming that will make you look at this family in a way you have not considered before. I will see you in the next one.